As we said, we'd love to hear from you. 0879 180 180 or leave a comment on the YouTube stream. Time for the performance rankings.
You know, that wasn't an All-Ireland winning performance.
Probably should have won the game based on their second half performance.
Is it a step too far to say it was the performance so far of the World Cup? Maybe not.
OTB AM's performance rankings with Gillette.
I'm scratching my head. That performance was just lacked that intensity.
Euros all the way?
Euros all the way this morning. The good, the bad, the grand, as ever on our performance rankings. One place to start. We will chat football in just a moment, but we will start with the Christian Eriksen situation here, and it is incredibly harsh to put anybody into the red after Saturday, because it was like this truly unprecedented thing that nobody can ever be fully prepared for. I think everybody working in the media, everybody working as a professional at the game on Saturday was thrown into a complete state of chaos, a complete state that nobody can ever be prepared for. But there is one element of this thing which is pissing a lot of people off and doesn't look great a couple of days out from this, and it is the decision to continue the game on Saturday night. The option was given to the Danish and Finnish players on Saturday, as we now know, to resume the game that night or to come back on Sunday morning and play the game at 12 o'clock midday. They were the two options given to Denmark and to Finland from a number of different accounts at this point. We've been told this by UEFA. And yet, this tweet went up on Saturday night from UEFA. Following the request made by players of both teams, UEFA has agreed to restart the match between Denmark and Finland tonight at 8:30. Now, I'm not sure about you, but if you have no other context and you see that tweet, you're certainly thinking to yourself, all right, Denmark and Finland have said, no, we don't care about all the different options you've given us, UEFA. We want to get this thing done tonight, which is just not the case whatsoever. That tweet just completely, and there was a thread, there were a number of different replies to it from UEFA, fails to mention that there was only one alternative provided to them other than finishing the game on Saturday night, and that was to come back on Sunday and finish the game at 12 o'clock, which was a similarly ridiculous notion. The idea that you'd have to probably get up at 7 or 8 o'clock in the morning in order to get to the stadium, it was just a non-starter. It was the lesser of two evils, not this sort of decision that they came to UEFA with, as that tweet points out. And really, it's like, I mean, you could be playing that game today, you could be playing that game tomorrow. They don't play again until Thursday, I think it is. The reaction, as you can imagine, hasn't gone down well in Denmark, for example. Peter Schmeichel said something terrible happens and UEFA gives the player an option to go out and play the game the last 55 minutes or come back at 12 o'clock. I mean, what kind of option is that? That was what Peter Schmeichel said. Michael Laudrup was critical as well. He said, you have to make a decision so soon after a big emotional event, and that, I believe, is wrong. UEFA should have just said, we won't play more tonight, of course, and then we will look at what possibilities we have. If you look at people closer to the team, Kasper Hjulmand, after the game, said, we knew we had two options. The players couldn't imagine not being able to sleep tonight and then having to get on the bus and come in again tomorrow. Honestly, it was best to get it over with. But then he did a press event yesterday and he said, no, we should not have played. He clearly had just kind of come to a greater realisation on Sunday. He said, we'll try tomorrow to establish normality as much as possible. Players have different reactions to shocks and trauma. And then Morten Boesen, one of the heroic doctors, said, I don't think the right decision was made to play the game. We have had help from a psychological point of view at the hotel last night. Everyone expressed their feelings and how they saw the situation, and everyone was pleased we talked it through. It is bonkers that this game is in the books and that we've actually seen this game resume and that game actually happened. It is crazy to think that this thing occurred, but it did. And if you are going to pick one area of criticism after Saturday, for me it has to rest with UEFA for that.
Like, I mean, I agree to a point. I also feel like almost any decision UEFA make in a scenario like this is going to end up being heavily criticised. Maybe the decision to play it the next day was the one that wouldn't have been, but didn't they say that they couldn't at that stage get their heads around going home, not sleeping, and then coming back the next morning at 12? Like, ultimately, if the penalty goes in and it's a 1-1 draw, everybody thinks, okay, actually, in a way, that's fair. That was kind of a... I almost thought that there would be some kind of gentleman's agreement that this was going to play out as a 0-0 draw after what had happened, but that obviously didn't happen. So, look, I think that I see a lot of people very angry about a lot of things, and, geez, it's just very hard to be very angry about a lot of stuff when Eriksen nearly died and then they saved him, and it's like, what do we do now? Because as the director was speaking in L'Equipe saying, there's no handbook for this. There is no handbook. We tried not to be creepy. We tried not to be, and they were a little bit creepy. But like again, the whole world wants to see what's happening. And if they'd cut back to studio, everybody would have gone, "Ooh, does that mean Christian Eriksen has just died and they can't show us this anymore? Or what's happening?" And so into that vacuum, all of a sudden, social media pours, and you are damned if you do and damned if you don't. And I understand that they definitely crossed lines at various stages, but to be super critical of anybody in the moment when this is unfolding is very difficult.
I agree with that to a point as well. I do think, though, that there is an element to this UEFA conversation that just doesn't sit well with me whatsoever. That, like, nobody knows how to handle this thing, but it seemed that there was almost a decision made that you have option A and you have option B, and that you were restricted in those decisions. Why wasn't there a third option? Why wasn't there a decision to come back tomorrow morning and talk about it rather than come back tomorrow and play the game?
Because the game needs to get played. So what is your option C now? So you, in the moment right now, what can you come up with, like 2 days later, with that third option? It's hard, isn't it? It's
hard, but Monday, Tuesday was an option. Like,
is it?
Well, I mean, if Sunday was going to be an option, would Monday, Tuesday not be an option?
Then they knock on impact on everything else, and somebody ends up being in a better position because they know the result or they don't know the result. Look, I'm sure there was an alternative, and if the game had been postponed because of a terror attack, or if there must have been some contingency plans in place. But so whatever those contingency plans must have been discussed in advance. That's the whole point of having big committees to do this stuff. It's just, I agree with you. It's just that it's very hard to find a solution that's going to make the tournament continue. And again, the importance of the tournament versus a man's life, and the horror of everybody watching that.
And the duty of care of the players that have witnessed this as well is what it boils down to, which is a hugely important point. Like, this was, we hold up sports people as these demigods sometimes, these people who, like, I find it incomprehensible sometimes that I'm even older than some of these players, and it just feels they're on a completely different plane of existence to all of us because they're professional athletes and they're so incredibly good at what they do. They do things that you or I could never dream of doing, and to see them standing there like that on Saturday, completely helpless as their friend was about to die or was just being brought back from that. Like, is this...
And then go out and play again.
Unspeakably tragic thing for them to go through, and then for them to have to go through it again that evening. I just think that maybe you can take away the idea of who knows what's happened in a game a little bit, and that goes for even the final match day in a group. Like, surely you could forgo that a little bit to allow a greater scope of possibilities. I don't know. Again, I am with you in the whole idea that it's very hard to be too critical when everybody is involved in this sphere of just the unprecedented, the unknown, and there is, like, I'm sure there were. I actually didn't see the full television coverage live as it was happening. I didn't see the scenes of Christian Eriksen's wife, thankfully, I think. And I'm sure that decision is something that is going to be the one that gets the most criticism after the course of the weekend, because that really does feel like a deliberate thing that the cameraman has to get into position and the director has to cut to that shot, and that for me doesn't sit easy either. But there are a number of other factors at play here which they're not accidental, but they are as a result of people and professionals being thrown into a situation that nobody can ever prepare you for.
All right. I do want to remind everybody, of course, this is the Gillette Performance Rankings, and we do them every Monday here on OTB AM. The point of this is to give you an opportunity to get involved and to give you a chance to win the Gillette Starter Pack. All you got to do is let us know who you would put in the good, the bad and the grand in our rankings. We'll pick a winner before the end of the show this morning, and we'll announce it around about 9:30. So let's fly through the rest of these, because obviously that was the most important thing that happened over the course of the weekend, and I can definitely see the point of putting UEFA in the red. I think that I definitely have... for the point you're making about the players being human, the people making these decisions are also under intense stress as well. So let's move on to the soap opera that is the football itself.
France in the red. Le bif est vrai, I think, is the phrase we're looking for this morning, Ger. This might actually become a running segment here on OTB AM over the course of the next few days and the next few weeks as we look to pick holes in this all too perfect French squad. And it seems that Didier Deschamps has done his bit to allow us to find a few holes to pick. The pre-competition friendly with Bulgaria seems to have sparked a bit of tension in the French squad. We were speaking about this last Friday on the show. Karim Benzema was replaced by Olivier Giroud. Olivier Giroud scores 2 goals, but he was helped not once by Kylian Mbappe to score those 2 goals. In fact, he did it in spite of Kylian Mbappe's existence, not because of Kylian Mbappe's existence on the pitch. Olivier Giroud came out afterwards and said, "I was quiet because sometimes you make a run and the balls just don't arrive. I don't always pretend to make the right calls, but I've tried hard to give solutions in the area." Basically saying that Kylian Mbappe wouldn't pass him the ball, but he was pretty happy to pass the ball to Karim Benzema when he was on the pitch. Now, Mbappe was said to be quite unhappy with this at the time, wanted to go out and do a press conference and address this head on, and was denied that request. However, that changed over the course of the weekend. On Sunday, he was allowed to do his media, and he said he'd been a little affected by Giroud's comments. "What he said does not bother me. He expresses a feeling when he speaks. I'm a forward and I've had that feeling 365 times in a game when you feel like you are not being served. It's more about releasing it publicly. I saw him in the dressing room. I congratulated him on his goals. He didn't say anything to me. I heard about it in the press. That's more important than what he said. He didn't say anything bad." So this is what's pissed Kylian Mbappe off. This is, it's not what he said, it's how he said it. He went to the press. He didn't come to me first. He was happy, and behind my back, he went on L'Equipe TV, and he has stirred the pot, in a pot that doesn't need stirring. We are the world champions, but there is a little bit of beef creeping into this French dressing room.
Okay, that's real. That is real. You can't put that back in, right?
No, and the interesting thing is that Karim Benzema is an injury out for tomorrow night's game against Germany, so we could have Giroud and Mbappe leading the line for the first game of the Euros against the Germany team, who, let's not forget, we painted last week as the potential. They have the potential to upset the apple cart a little bit in this group, where Portugal and France are seen as a top 2, but the pesky Germans could come along and really upset that, and I think the French are doing quite a bit to upset themselves. Giroud is 5 off Henry's record of goals, by the way. That's going to be something that he's going to be looking to eclipse during the course of this tournament. That is something I get the feeling that just annoys Benzema quite a bit, and I wouldn't be surprised if Benzema's return to the squad is instrumental in some way to the tone of all of this. Like, he's obviously described Giroud as a go-kart compared to Benzema's Formula 1 car a couple of years ago, and like I just think that he sees Giroud as this big, lumbering, effective goal scorer, but Benzema sees himself as the classy individual up front who is on a level above Giroud. So
he is, though. He is. Like, it's facts,
right.
Facts be facts. There's nothing you can do about that. Like, he is absolutely a better footballer. He's had a much better career. He's been far more successful. He doesn't have a World Cup winners medal. Let's look. Okay, so that's France. France has a proper beef going on at the moment, and they are in the red. Why are England only in amber for you this week?
Well, okay, so you can see the Netherlands coming up in green and England in the amber. That makes no sense. Of course it doesn't. I mean, if you're doing a power rankings of teams, of course England will be ahead of Netherlands in the race for this trophy. We'll get to the Netherlands in just a moment, but the expectation for England is different to that of the Netherlands. While England have done brilliant work in downplaying expectations over the course of the last 2 tournaments, Gareth Southgate, this brilliant statesman, all these players incredibly likeable, and have done nothing in the way of actually trying to big up their expectations or to be arrogant at past England teams. But if they crash out of the last 16 in a tournament, which is effectively a home tournament, I think that is a disappointing outcome for this group of England players. So did you see anything yesterday against Croatia in their 1-0 win that would suggest that they could beat Portugal or France in the last 16? And I'm not sure we did. I think that we saw magnificent performances from the likes of Belgium and Italy. And yes, Croatia are probably better than Russia or Turkey. In fact, they're definitely better than Turkey or Russia. But
they were in their last World Cup final.
They were. They've had a heap of retirements since then. They were awful yesterday. And England were grand.
I thought England were really good. I think that we were definitely underrating. I still think he hasn't got the team right. That's my main thing. And I actually, the whole Raheem Sterling, did he justify his selection because he scored the goal? Oh, he looked so dangerous. I'm not sure he looked that dangerous, I've got to say. And I don't think, obviously, Harry Kane didn't have a good game. However, when he accidentally sticks Jack Grealish in the team at some point, they're going to explode into this tournament. And I think that they controlled the game in a way that I haven't seen an England team control the game. I thought they were confident in their passing. I thought they were aggressive. Their forward unit did not create as many chances as you would expect to. And yet, having said that, the Phil Foden chance that comes up back off the upright, and the Harry Kane chance where you would actually have expected him to bust a gut to get to that at the far post and not it in. I think that they could have won that game 3-0, and that would have been an accurate reflection of the quality of the performance they put in. And so I'm not having this on. I'm sorry, I'm not having this. I think that England played really well yesterday, and I don't know what you've got to take off, what layers of post-colonial inferiority complex are pushing down in you to prevent you from saying that was a good performance of England. They were good.
How many goals could they have been up against Iceland, for example, before the whole thing collapsed 5 years ago? Like this is the
what happened since then
this is the narrative
that they reached a World Cup semi-final.
Yeah, and I'm sure that there were people saying that they could have won that game on a different night as well. Like, I mean,
but they won last night. They've got this incredible array of talent.
They do.
Who are starting to have a bit of confidence.
And like, in fairness, this is a group of players that are on a mental level, on a level above the 2000s England teams. We know that. It's just the quality of the performance yesterday was grand, and we're putting them in the grand this morning. We're not putting them in the bad. We're not putting them in the good. They were fine. Like, Calvin Phillips looks like just a perfect person to be marshalling this midfield, and he's almost your first name in the team sheet. Like, I mean, Jordan Henderson, if he was fully fit, might have had that position, and actually Calvin Phillips is maybe a more effective midfielder in this team. Jude Bellingham, when he came on, is the youngest ever European player and looked quite at home.
Yeah.
They got their first ever win in the first time of asking at the Euros.
That's why I think that, like,
positive. But is this a team that we can be confident is going to beat France or Portugal in the last 16? I think not, and I think that will be a disappointing outcome if they lose that last 16. Now, the thing is, they've got their hardest game out of the way now. Scotland and Czech Republic, they get 1 point from those last 2 games, they qualify, and like, that's it. So the whole thing is almost done with a first round win against the second seeds in the group. So they can put the feet, they won't put the feet up, but they can if they want to over the next couple of games, and they will be fine in the context of this group. But I think the bar for England is so high, given, as you say, the quality of players in this squad, because it is an outstanding squad.
Yeah. Look, I think there's a very good chance that England are the next World Cup winners, and that we're watching a team who are cresting towards Qatar next year as a team who can... Bear in mind, it's 18 months between now and the World Cup final. It's Christmas week next year is the World Cup final, and that group of players is only going to get better and understand. I still just feel like they're a bit trapped in the old formations, and look, I don't know. We'll see exactly how well they develop. I wonder, I was thinking, what would Pep Guardiola's England team be from that squad, and how different would it be, and what would it look like? I think that's an interesting thought experiment that we might come back to later on in the week.
Yeah, like playing Kieran Trippier at left back is the exact sort of thing that Pep Guardiola would do in a Champions League final, for example.
Well, I think that Pep Guardiola might do it across the course of the season, and Trippier would step into midfield, but it might not be Trippier. I think it would be somebody else. And I certainly don't think he'd be playing 2 centre-backs. I don't think he would have played 2 centre-backs yesterday. Maybe he would against Croatia. But anyway, look, let's go on.
The good. Let's start here with the Netherlands, actually, because I've already mentioned them. Like, we could put Belgium in here, but I think we're going to have plenty of time to talk about Belgium at different points during this tournament. They're going to go deep into this thing. I'm putting the Netherlands in here because the Netherlands have had their best player injured for quite some time. They've lost Ronald Koeman quite some time ago, and they've got used to the fact that Frank de Boer is their manager for quite some time at the moment. So they realise they're not going to win this tournament for quite some time, and they have this beautiful freedom about them that comes with knowing that they're not going to win a tournament, but still being pretty good at football. And then the exhibition last night we see was evidence of that, yeah, they went 2-0 up against Ukraine, but this is the new Netherlands. This is the post-Van Dijk, post-Ronald Koeman Netherlands. This is a team that will let you down. This is a team that will concede twice, but then score a stunning winner to put themselves back ahead. This is going to be the most fun team to watch at this year's competition, bar none. This brilliant contrast of orange and blue jerseys on show last night was just part of the best clash we've had so far in this competition. And I also want to mention the fact that the Amsterdam Arena is just this brilliant, visually pleasing thing, it turns out. And one of the things that's also extremely visually pleasing is the semi-full stadium. So this is something that we haven't got too used to because we've been used to empty stadiums or full stadiums. But I love the half-full stadium because the director will pan to the crowd and there will be a fan celebrating a goal. But if you're in a packed stadium, you almost know what you have to do. You put your arms around the person beside you and you jump up and down in that little micro spot that you've got to yourself. But in this tournament, you've got like 4 or 5 seats either side of you. You go into full freestyle mode. You can pop a move, you can fist pump towards the sky, you can get your phone out. You've got so many more options to celebrate a goal or to celebrate a moment. And we're seeing these great moments of performance art from different supporters around the grounds. And it was just at its best yesterday in the Cruyff Arena, where you had this Netherlands fan who didn't really know what to do with himself, and the Ukraine equalised, so he just marched across the aisle shook a Ukraine fan's hand and walked back to his seat. So these are all the different elements you get with the Netherlands at the moment, and everybody should be wanting them to go as far as they can in this tournament. They'll be on a relatively forgiving side of the draw when they top this group. They're not going to win this thing, but I think they know that themselves, and they're a hell of a lot of fun.
Yeah, and it's make or break for De Boer's managerial career. We're going to skip Italy for now because they are in your green, but we're going to talk about that in 1 second with David Myler. So that is your performance rankings for this week. If you disagree, agree, or if you get your own thoughts on our Euros performance rankings, and we'd love to hear from you because we've got a Gillette starter pack to give away. All you got to do is let us know who would you put in the good, the bad, or the grand on our rankings. That is it for Monday's Gillette performance rankings.
OTB AM's performance rankings with Gillette.